Welcome, everyone, to Fluent English Studio. Today, we are exploring a story that hits close to home for millions. Have you ever felt like you followed every rule, worked harder than anyone expected, and yet, you're still waiting for your real life to start? In this video, we aren't just improving our vocabulary. We are uncovering the hidden psychology of a generation stuck in a loading screen. Let's dive deep into the millennial mind. You know what's weird? An entire generation got told they were special. Then they worked harder than anyone expected, and somehow ended up unable to afford the same life that seemed completely normal just one generation earlier. That's a psychology experiment nobody signed up for. I'm talking about millennials, people born between 1981 and 1996. And before you roll your eyes, stay with me, because this gets uncomfortable in ways you probably haven't thought about. Millennials became the first generation in modern American history, expected to be worse off financially than the generation before them. This means we've got an entire demographic walking around with a bizarre psychological cocktail of achievement and failure mixed together in their heads every single day. Imagine being told your whole childhood that you could be anything, and then graduating into a recession where the participation trophy suddenly becomes a master's degree that costs more than a house used to. The psychological term for this is cognitive dissonance, and millennials are basically swimming in it. But this goes deeper than student loans and avocado toast jokes. Psychologist Jean Twenge, in her research on Generation Me, found that millennials score higher on narcissism scales than previous generations. But they also score higher on anxiety and depression. So, you've got a generation that simultaneously thinks they're special and feels completely worthless. A trauma response with a LinkedIn profile. Think about the timeline. Millennials were the test subjects for every parenting trend from the self-esteem movement of the 80s and 90s. Helicopter parents, everyone gets a trophy. You're smart just for existing. These weren't bad intentions, but then millennials hit their 20s right as the economy imploded in 2008. They graduated into a job market that had fundamentally changed and suddenly found themselves navigating a reality they weren't prepared for. Then came social media. Millennials learned how to be adults while simultaneously learning how to perform their lives for an audience. Research on materialism and well-being shows that when people base their self-worth on external validation, which is what social media trains you to do, their mental health tanks. You're essentially running a 24/7 campaign for your own existence, and the polls never close. Now, look at the traditional life milestones: marriage, home ownership, having kids. Surveys show millennials want these things, but the economic reality makes them borderline impossible without family wealth. So, you've got people in their 30s and 40s who still feel like they're waiting for their real life to start. This prolonged uncertainty creates a low-level stress called allostatic load. It is your body's tendency to prepare for something that never actually comes. Sort of like being stuck in the loading screen of your own life. Millennials were sold a specific story. Effort equals outcome. When reality fundamentally violates your core beliefs, it's called schema disruption. This explains why this generation is often both idealistic and deeply cynical. They still believe things should be fair. They just no longer believe they will be. They get roasted for job hopping, but corporate America changed the relationship first. Pensions disappeared, and mass layoffs became a strategy. Millennials didn't invent this lack of loyalty. They just adapted to an environment that treats workers as interchangeable. They are the first generation to widely destigmatize therapy, which is massive. But they're doing it while living in conditions that are objectively more stressful. They're watching the planet deteriorate while being told they're the ones who need to fix it, despite having less power and resources. Existential dread with a side of helplessness. The psychology of millennials is predictable when you look at what they've been through. They're responding exactly how humans respond when the landscape shifts beneath them and the map they were given no longer matches the territory.